presidents of the United States and Russia are expected to iron out the details of a proposed ceasefire agreement in Syria. The hope is that it comes into force in the coming days, but with every delay to the diplomacy, more people are paying with their lives. Since January the 29th, when the latest failed peace talks began, at least 894 civilians have been killed. Men, women and children who chose not to take up arms against either side. Well, for the latest, let's cross to Asha Tanna, who's in the Turkish capital, Ankara. Asha, good to speak to you this morning. So the foreign minister has been speaking earlier. What did he have to say regarding the ground operation in Syria?
Well, Kamali, Mevlut Çavuşoğlu this morning at a news conference said that Russian airstrikes were the biggest obstacle to a ceasefire being achieved in Syria. He ruled out any option of putting troops on the ground and said that would have to be a collective effort by all allied forces. Now, since Moscow got involved in the fight against Daesh, it has changed the dynamics of the ground in terms of fighting for both Assad forces as well as the YPG. And the YPG is the armed wing of the political group, the PYD, which Ankara sees as an offshoot of the terror organisation, the PKK. Now, on Sunday, bombings took place in both Damascus and in Homs, claiming the lives of 130 people. ISIS has claimed responsibility, Daesh has claimed responsibility for that attack. And this comes as President Assad has said to reporters that Syrian refugees shouldn't feel afraid of coming back home. Now, Mevlut Çavuşoğlu made reference to Daesh and said that many countries have failed to defeat this particular terrorist organisation because some allies are relying on the YPG and there's no joined-up thinking.
If there's going to be a ground operation, it has to involve all coalition countries. This is not something Turkey and Saudi Arabia can do alone. We are saying the same thing that we said 1.5 years ago. There is a reality here. We are not successful in our fight against Daesh. 65 countries in the world couldn't succeed in their fight against Daesh because there is no strategy or determination. Hopes are now pinned to another terrorist organization called the YPG. We cannot effectively fight against a terrorist organization like this. We are talking openly and clearly. It is not open to manipulation.
Well, Kamali, you talked about a cessation of hostilities, that talks between John Kerry and his counterpart. That failed to kick-start on Friday. That deadline passed. Now, the Syrian opposition on Saturday agreed to a possible truce. That now, well, may be hanging in the balance following the bombings in Damascus and Homs. The Syrian opposition are now due to meet again in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday.
Well, Asha, thanks for joining us there from Ankara. And for more, we can speak to Amar Kaf from the Omran Centre for Strategic Studies based here in Istanbul. So, Amar, thank you very much for coming in this morning. So, as we were hearing there from the Foreign Minister, one of the big problems that we have here is the support for the YPG and the denunciation of the YPG by Turkey. How are we going to resolve that particular issue, first of all?
Well, I mean, the source of all the terrorist activity in Syria has been the Assad regime since day one. And the Assad regime has declared openly by the advisor to Assad and also the UN representative of Syria that the YPD, the PYD or YPG, is actually part of the Syrian army, official army. So that is very problematic to all Syrians to begin with, and that has caused a lot of instability to the region, not only to Turkey, but we definitely, as Syrians, recognize the need for a stable and secure Turkey in order for the region to be restabilized.
Now, we've gone through a number of days where ceasefires are meant to happen, they haven't happened. Do you see any hope that one's going to happen in the coming few days? We've got a few days until the next round of talks are due to begin.
Well, there are currently talks between the Russians and the Americans, and unfortunately the killings have escalated in the last week since the alleged cease of hostilities in Munich statement, and just during the Geneva talks in January 28 to February 1st, almost 61 people were killed only in these 4 days, and since then over hundreds of people were killed across Syria, and the shelling have not ceased at all. by the Russian Air Force, but also by a lot of the militias that have aggressively fought in a very, very severe manner to basically kick out all of the Syrian populations from the Aleppo suburbs and Aleppo city to the borders of Turkey, and thus even furthering the pressure on Europe in that sense.
Well, Amar, and I mean, that's really the crux of it, isn't it? That while all this talking is going on in various European cities, the people of Syria are really suffering. What needs to be done to try and help those people in Syria? And what does the international community need to do?
A serious political transition that would seriously take out the Assad regime and remove it from power and establish a stable and political system that is all inclusive and all Syrian. According to the Geneva Communique in 2012, let's go back to the original Geneva II rather than all of the Vienna talks that have deviated from the original plan that the Syrians have accepted. And the Syrian armed groups have even been very cooperative in terms of agreeing to a cease of hostilities and a ceasefire, provided that the source of all terrorism, the illegitimacy of the regime, of the Assad regime, is not put back on the table, that it's over, that the Syrian people are over with this phase in their life, this period of the Assad regime rule. And this is unfortunately what's happening, is that they're putting back the Assad regime as a partner in fighting and countering extremism and terrorism, and that's very problematic.
Well, Amar Kaf, thank you very much for coming in. A very complicated situation, but thank you for doing your best to unpick it for us. Thank you.